spectrum survival on Survival Talk Radio. Join us for Dad Talks, political debates, and pro-gun conversation.
Hi, you're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan-shrigley. Come and learn survival.
Take us to your land, where you live. Survival Talk Radio. We like Survival Talk Radio. Take us to your land.
Metro Security Services.
Based out of Pleasanton, California, servicing the Northern California Bay Area. For all your security needs, please call Metro Security Services out of Pleasanton, California.
Tell them Dan-shrigley sent you. Well, hello, everybody. Hello. It is the 4th of January, 2022. Wow. I lived this long. I'm surprised because I've done some dangerous stuff in my life. So, this episode is going to be about a First Amendment protected activity, filming in public and filming the police. And I see a lot of videos on TikTok. I see a lot of videos on YouTube. I see a lot of videos on Instagram. And I see a lot of videos on Facebook. And so I'm going to give you my take on this topic and what I understand. And, I'm not a lawyer. And I am not giving illegal advice. I'm giving common knowledge and what I understand about the Constitution of the United States pertaining to this topic, and the reason why this right would be protected, and maybe a little bit of a reason why people do what they do, like they call it auditing, holding accountable, and all that good stuff. So we're going to get into this conversation, and I hope that you enjoy it. You might agree with some things I say. You might disagree with some things I say. And I gave you a warning. I'm not a lawyer. So we're going to go shoot from the hip on this conversation. And I'm going to share with you what I feel about it. So I want to start off by I support the blue. I support law enforcement. And I don't hate law enforcement. And I'm not attacking law enforcement by any measure, okay? But we should always hold our authorities accountable, especially when they are elected officials or appointed or public officials under an appointment. So a police officer is appointed. They are sworn by their department or their agency. And we need to get back to the understanding that the United States Constitution is the backbone of our nation and our freedoms. And as perfect as some people think it is, in a lot of ways it was imperfect. And that's why we have had wars in our own country. And national infighting, fighting for people's rights. And so as we grew as a country to adapt a better way. Let's say that the United States is an experiment, and anytime you're experimenting, there's always going to be room for error, but room for correction, room to learn a better way and not repeat the mistakes of our past. So we are always transitioning to a better pathway, a better place to arrive at. You know what I mean? And so slavery, we had the Constitution when slavery was going on. And then we had the, Abraham Lincoln emancipated the slaves. They should have never been slaves in the first place. There's a lot of things we've done in our history that is horrific. And America is not an angel, a clean slate angel. We've had some mistakes, but the great news is we've learned from those mistakes. And hopefully we don't repeat them, but it kind of looks like we're slipping into repeating some of those mistakes, but instead of one demographic, they're targeting another, but I don't want to make this about race. I want to kind of keep this, because I believe that we all have the right, regardless of the color of your skin or the income you earn, or your education level or your religion. We all should have the right and have afforded to us the same freedoms, the same abilities, the same prospects for a brighter future. But I also believe we should work for those. I don't think it should just be handed to you because you live here, handed to you because you're this skin color, handed to you because you came from this location to our nation. I think that I prefer capitalism versus socialism. Most nations that do socialism that I'm aware of, if I'm wrong, you can point it out. Drop a comment, tag me on a social media thing, and point out something that you think is different. I'm open to read anybody's comment. But nowhere am I aware that socialism was a success. Not really. Okay. And I guess it depends on who's measuring that success and where you stand. Because if you support socialism, you might say it's successful. But I am not a socialist. I am a freedom-loving combat veteran, person that served his life serving the greater good, working for the greater good, and I believe in the freedoms that the Constitution of the United States and our Declaration of Independence gives us. And so our First Amendment protected activity, referring to that, you watch YouTube, you see the auditors that go out and they'll film in public, they'll go to the post office, they'll go to a courthouse, they'll go to City Hall, they'll go to a police department, and they'll be out in public and they'll just film police activity. And I do get sometimes the feeling that that individual that's filming sometimes is kind of going out of their way to be a nuisance to police, what would you call ambulance chasing, trying to make the police trip up and cause the ability to sue the officer or the police department or the city for violating their rights. So and I don't necessarily agree with it because it's kind of like harassing, but I understand the reason for it and I support that reason. We should hold our authorities accountable, and our authorities should know the laws, and they should protect those laws, and they should honor their oath and be oath keepers. And they took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies, foreign and domestic. So what is an enemy? Somebody from outside of our nation trying to violate our Constitution, or someone within our nation that's a citizen trying to violate the Constitution, and so or attacking our country or whatever. But an enemy of the Constitution of the United States on the domestic aspect would be like a politician that swears an oath, puts their hand on a Bible or the Quran or whatever it is they believe in or whatever, but they take an oath under penalty of perjury and all that stuff, that they're going to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And then some politicians turn right around immediately and then start attacking the Constitution, attacking your right to bear arms, attacking your right to freedom of religion, attacking your right to free speech, attacking your right to freedom of the press, And so with social media and YouTube platforms, video platforms, blogs and vlogs, video blogs, podcasts, everybody can be considered media. You might be researching a content for a story, and that story could be police corruption. It could be whatever, and those are all protected activities. And the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled on these things. So I'm going to give you some examples, and I'm shooting from the hip. I'm not scripted, so hopefully I don't forget anything, and my conversation develops as we go. So when you're out in public, in the public space, not on private property, but on a city street, on a sidewalk, in a designated area where you're not considered jaywalking, obstructing traffic, you must adhere to the laws. You can't block traffic. You can't impede traffic. And that would include, you can't block a sidewalk and hog it up, preventing other people to use the sidewalk. That you would move to one side and let the other person by. So blocking traffic isn't just necessarily for a roadway. It could be a sidewalk. It could be whatever. So if, like, for instance, and I'm going to refer to videos I've seen. There was a video where I seen an individual, a auditor, went to a police department and was walking around filming. And filming from public access ways, the public easement. And law enforcement shows up, kind of notices someone was walking around on the property along the sidewalk, filming the building, filming in the direction of the parked cars, filming in the direction of the back lot where they park their squad cars or emergency vehicles, city-owned, state-owned, whatever it was. But it wasn't gated off, and they were in the public access way. So a lot of cops, they see you filming, their police department, for instance. They're wondering what is going on here. Now, let's remember, I understand you're an auditor, but we have had terrorist attacks in the United States, and we've had school shootings and public shootings, not at schools, but mass shootings. And it happens a lot, almost 100 times a year throughout the United States, sometimes more than 100, sometimes 150. I don't think mass shootings happen 200 times, but it's between 100 and 200, somewhere in there. It happens quite a bit. And it fluctuates from year to year. Maybe a year or two ago, it was 97 mass shootings or whatever, but those are horrible. Timothy McVeigh drove a truck and blew up a federal building. So, naturally, law enforcement is on alert to look for suspicious activity. I'm going to say that being suspicious is not a crime. Go look it up in any penal code of any state, and the act of just being suspicious in and of itself is not a crime. And that's not enough reason to do a Terry stop, or I mean you could do a Terry stop. Of course you can do it, but what I mean is there's not enough there alone to demand ID, especially if you're in a state where there's a law saying that in order for a police officer to ask you for ID, they have to have reasonable suspicion that you are about to commit a crime, have committed a crime, or will commit a crime. And if they're just doing it because they see you holding a camera, you're not making any threats, you're not trespassing, you're not necessarily loitering because you're walking around, you're on a public sidewalk, it's made there for the public, and the only thing you're doing differently than the average person that walks down the sidewalk is you're holding a camera. That still is not a crime. And if there's no signs posted saying filming is not allowed on the premises, then that means beyond that point, you can't film. Up to that point, though, where the sign is, you can film. You can film the sign. Otherwise, everybody that goes to Area 51 at the main gate would be arrested. All right? For going to the gate to read the sign that says "Do not enter," no filming. That means once you get beyond that gate, there's no filming allowed. By order of the post commander. So, but if you're outside and you're not in a controlled area, you're not in a secured area, and obviously if you were in a controlled area or a secured area and you weren't supposed to be, you'd be trespassing. All right, and they would stack the charges on you for whatever crimes they can prove that you committed, or they suspect that you committed and have evidence to show that. But if you were just walking on the sidewalk that leads into the lobby area of the police department, you can film there. Matter of fact, you can go into the lobby and film in the lobby. But where you can't film is wherever they have a sign posted for privacy reasons. They don't want you filming, obviously it makes sense. You can't go into the detective's office and start filming everything in there and then blasting it all over social media or whatever venue, because you might screw up an investigation there might be leaked information on that, and so naturally that makes sense, and that's kind of like common knowledge. But you can film inside the lobby area of a police department. You can film inside the lobby area of a courthouse. You can film inside the pedestrian area for the public, inside a post office. You can film in any area unless it's explicitly posted that you're not allowed to. But and that means you can't go beyond that point after that sign. So you can't enter that, entryway, or go behind that door, or film what's behind the counter, behind the glass or whatever. So you'll see cops come out and they'll stop you, and they'll get into your business and threaten to arrest you. But really, they can't arrest you because you haven't broken the law. You haven't violated a municipal code, or you haven't violated a state law. And so they really don't have a whole lot. And I will say this, just because a bunch of, city council members and the mayor pass a law saying you can't film on this property without a permit, well, that's still illegal. If you can film anywhere you want to, as long as it's a public easement, and it's not closed to the public. So I know there's some cities that have tried to pass laws because they want to make a profit. They want to tax you for filming. So if you whip out your phone and you're filming your daughter taking her first steps, but you happen to be at the city park, a cop's going to walk up to you in that specific city that passed that municipal code and tell you, you can't film here unless you go to the courthouse and get a permit. That's unlawful, okay? And believe it or not, that city exists. I've seen it on videos where the sergeant for the police department came out and told the guy, you must go to the city hall and see the clerk and get a filming permit if you're going to film. and I believe she's mistaken. I think if you're going to film commercially for like, for a profit, and or for a movie, or for a TV commercial, or for a brand, maybe they can enforce that. But if you're just privately filming, it's a First Amendment protected activity, and it doesn't matter. So sometimes the law that is passed violates the Constitution. And that's why we have a United States Supreme Court. Now, I've been on the comment feeds to some YouTube videos where I'll make a comment about a First Amendment protected activity. And some yahoos will come up and say, well, what if that person was standing in front of your house and filming? I'll be like, it's a First Amendment protected activity. I might not like it, but it's their lawful right to do that, and I stand for the right. And it might be a little uncomfortable, but I'm not doing anything in public that I'm worried about, but I'm not going to do anything in public that I need to be too concerned about. So film away. I might even pose for you. Yeah. How do you like this pose? How about that pose? Do it look cool? Make it worth a while, A lot of times if you just have a good attitude with those guys, they'll be like, they'll move on because they're like, there's no drama. They like drama. They like the negativity drama. So if you're just cool with them, hey, yo, I see what you're doing. Oh, great. Hey, people like you keep us accountable. If a cop walked up to an auditor and said, hey, man, I know exactly what you're doing. People like you keep us accountable. And I admire that. I always try to do my job every day to the best of my ability. And that's why our department makes us carry on our chest a body camera, and it keeps us accountable, keeps us in check. A camera could be your best friend, it could be your worst enemy, and I'll give you an example. Jeremy DeWitt from Metro Escort Services, or whatever his company name is, out of Florida, but he's the guy that always gets caught because he films himself with his body cameras, and then on his own cameras, once there's been a warrant served to go through his footage, they find out that he's made misdemeanors and felonies, and then he ends up getting arrested and having to go to court. Guy's a buffoon. So so all he runs is a funeral escort company, and he decks his motorcycles out in his cars to look like PD. They have the lights and the little horn that you see police departments vehicles have, and and it's just and then he treats the public as if he's law enforcement. All he is a funeral escort, so he's gotten in trouble. So if you want to see something very entertaining to watch, get onto YouTube and type in the name Jeremy DeWitt, Metro something. Not Metro Security Services out of Pleasanton, California. They're straight up legit, and nobody runs around impersonating a police department there. They are a private security company with security guards, and there's no way you can confuse our vehicles or our uniforms with law enforcement intentionally. And we are all 100% Bureau of Security and Investigative Services approved, and we conduct ourselves in a manner that is professional, but within the guidelines of BSIS and state law and federal law. So, but Jeremy DeWitt, not the case. He's not even a licensed security guard, let alone a police officer. So, what I would like to say about this is, law enforcement's out there, and there are some corrupt cops. There are some very egocentric cops. There are some cops that, must have cheated their way through the police department academy because they just don't seem to know the law. And then there's some great officers, and I should say the majority of cops are great officers. And I'm going to give you a statistic that might drop your jaw. So crime-wise, and, like I worked in one of the highest crime-ridden communities in San Francisco. And, I worked in the housing developments, the housing projects. The crime was rampant. But the reality is that the crime only made up 3% of the larger community. Most people there aren't criminals. And most people there are just living there trying to survive, and are good people contributing to society, voters, taxpayers, and it's that 3% that ruins it for everyone around them, that criminal element. Same goes with law enforcement. Same goes with the military. All branches of service. Just because someone's in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, whatever, Civil Air Patrol, Boy Scouts, just because someone's a member of an organization, an agency, a firm, a department, a government body, that doesn't mean they're law-abiding. A lot of times criminals are criminals that just never got caught, and they're just good at hiding what they do, and they do their dirt in secret. And that can include cops, that can include sheriff deputies, FBI agents, CIA, U.S. Marshals. I mean, any branch of law enforcement is going to have corruption in it. And the evidence is, to prove that, is they have internal affairs. Why would they have an internal affairs department or agency or division if they didn't have corruption? So, they know they do. And that's what the internal affairs is there to investigate. They're the police. And I'm sure some internal affairs investigators or detectives are also corrupt. Hopefully not, though, but they're human. And so to err is human. To be faulted is human. No human is born without sin. And so everybody is capable of temptation, corruption, everybody has a motivation. It might not be money. It might be position. It might be advancement. You never know. And so, these auditors that go out, when a cop gives you a ticket and they pull you over and they write you up a bunch of tickets, they don't get a commission. But a lot of that money goes back to the state, and goes back to the department. And their department gets their revenue, improves their criminal percentages, and their annual criminal percentages, for traffic violations. Everything they do is looked at statistically, so they can get a bigger budget, and which makes sense. So, but it's not like the cops personally getting a commission off of writing you a ticket, but they might get an advancement, a pay raise or a promotion, or they might get that assignment that they were hoping to get. Maybe they want to move to robbery, and maybe they get tired of working patrol and they want to go to homicide, or maybe they want to do some kind of other activity within the department, or motorcade or something. So, maybe they, are competing for a trophy. The officer that gets the most DUIs or something, but, those are good goals in a way, and in a way they're not. It depends on what side of the fence you're on. I think every job, whether it's law enforcement or not, should have incentives for their employees. But we held law enforcement to a higher standard as a society, and when law enforcement fails to hold the standard, they're gonna get dealt with, and either they'll get a department reprimand or termination, or they get criminally prosecuted. There's a lot of high liability there, especially in today's climate where there's a lot of anti-police sentiment, defund the police sentiment. which is unfortunate because right now, with crime on the rise, we need more police. But when you have politicians making it unattractive for law enforcement to recruit, it makes people not want to be law enforcement, or it makes law enforcement want to go find employment for another agency, maybe out of state. It's not too good. And you can see that in the crime stats. It reflects quickly in the crime stats. When you start messing with the budget, crime goes up. When you start changing laws and empowering the criminal, crime goes up. And you're seeing that a lot now, where politicians have empowered the criminal and weakened the defense of the victims of crime, and weakened the ability for police and law enforcement overall to protect. It's not good. But we do have to keep our law enforcement accountable, and the best way to do that is through film. Do I agree to go out and provoke law enforcement and, cause a distraction? Because while they're over here trying to figure out if you're a threat to the building or to the public, and, because they don't know. They don't know, what you're doing. Maybe you're casing the area so you can commit a future crime, and that's why you need all this photography. And that's probably a lot of what they're thinking. You're over here thinking they're just harassing you because you're walking around the camera, but they're over here wondering what your long-term purpose with that film's going to be. And it might not legally be their business because they don't have something to charge you with a crime on, but they're thinking long-term down the road. Like, once you leave, what are you going to do? Analyze that film? Are you recording when certain individuals come in and go out? Are you a stalker? They don't know. And they're not going to know unless they investigate. And then you have these guys, as soon as the law enforcement approaches them, I plead the fifth. I don't answer questions. I am not going to identify myself to you because I don't have to, because you don't have, a reasonable, articulable suspicion I've committed a crime, did commit a crime, am about to commit a crime, and so it puts the police officers in a position where, wow, I just don't, I don't know what to do, because I understand the Constitution, but I also understand your activity is kind of like unusual, and like I said earlier, suspicious activity is not a crime. It's it might give them a reason to stop you, but it's not necessarily a reason for them to detain you. So, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be rulings in the U.S. Supreme Court on some of these cases down the road, and state legislature is going to try to pass laws that empower the law enforcement when dealing with First Amendment auditors and stuff like that. But then the auditors are going to take those situations up to the U.S. Supreme Court and try to fight it, because ultimately they can argue it violates the U.S. Supreme Court. So it's like a back and forth argument between the auditors and law enforcement and the law. And the law should always stand. And I understand not all cops know the law. There's common law, and some states don't recognize common law, but some states do kind of recognize common law. And I'll give you an example. You might not get common law married in California, but if you go to Arkansas, you can get common law married and be considered someone's common law wife or husband, but not in California. So, it's just two different laws, two different states, and each state has the right to govern itself, but they all must adhere to the United States Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. And so that being said, what is the value of filming the police? Well, it keeps them accountable so that if they do violate your rights, you can prove it in court. I saw a video where law enforcement was responding to a 911 call to an address, and it was the wrong address, I believe. And it said the phone call came from a landline, not a cell phone. Well, all the people inside the house only had cell phones, and the house didn't have a landline. My house, I don't have a landline. My whole network is cellular. So I haven't had a landline since 2012. I don't need one. And I have wireless and Wi-Fi. And so, and even a home security system doesn't operate on a landline. And I would encourage you to not use a landline for a security system, because they can cut the landline and disconnect your security system. But a lot of security systems now use an independent cellular network connection or Wi-Fi. And I would say the independent cellular connection is probably the best, because no one can cut your line to cut the communication from the device to the response center. But with the First Amendment auditors, they are basically going out in public, filming themselves, filming whatever they can see. And so they're not just filming law enforcement, they're filming like security guards and stuff like that too. And so they'll stand across the street off property, and they won't even be on the property. They'll be across the street off the property, and they'll be like filming a Lockheed Martin facility location, which has signs posted no filming. But that means no filming on the property is allowed. It doesn't say no filming of our gate is allowed. Because what's funny is you can get on Google Earth and go to that same exact property and go in and get aerial topography of everything on that installation or that property. And you can even probably get street view on a lot of it, if they allowed street view to go in there and film, like you would like Google or something or whatever. But at least that you could get satellite imagery of what's beyond that gate. Because at the gate of this secure area, it says no filming. So there were some guys standing across the street off the property on a public access area, not owned by Lockheed Martin. And the security guard left the property he's assigned to and came across the street to public domain space and was harassing these guys, calling the sheriff department on these guys. And ultimately, he even assaulted the camera guys, put his hands on them, and was demanding ID and all that. So, and then the sheriff came up and was, getting in their business too. And, basically, telling them to leave and all that. And they have every right to stand there. You can't really make them leave. Now, if the sheriff deputy wanted to arrest the guys and take them to jail, he could. And those guys would end up being able to file a lawsuit against the officer and the department and Lockheed Martin, because that's where it happened. And so you could be across the street and film. You can film anything your eyes can see and anything you can zoom in on, but you can't go behind, say you're at a police department and they have a gate that closes off their parking lot and a fence that wraps around. If you're inside there, that's trespassing because it's not public access. That means you either jump the fence, slipped in when a car was going through and you snuck in, but you don't belong there, and you know you don't belong there, and law enforcement knows you don't belong there. You could be in the public space where the everyday public can come in and park. There's not a controlled access area, and you can film there. But a lot of concerns for law enforcement is, why are you filming our cars in the police department parking lot? Are you trying to run our plates to find out which car belongs to which officer or employee? And are you trying to find out where we live? And that's their concern. Now what the state could do is they could pass a law saying it is illegal to go to a police department parking lot and film employee license plates. And that's how they would defeat you. They're not saying it's illegal to film in public, but it's illegal for you to film employee license plates to their employees, because they don't want you getting their plate numbers. And that is why law enforcement officers have the ability to go to DMV or Department of Motor Vehicles or whatever, and have their plates registered back to the police department. And the police department will, if, like, say for instance, you are a police officer for San Leandro Police in California, or Hayward Police, or Oakland Police, and you drive a Mustang. All right. Well, you could go to the DMV, show them your police badge, and maybe a letterhead from the department, and then they'll take your registration for your plate. So when someone trips your plate comes back to the police department, and then the police department would have to give up that information, like if you were in a hit and run or something, or auto accident, and the insurance company would know that plate comes back to whoever has their policy with them, but you can't just access that information at large using the internet search, or going to GMV to get that plate information. But they would give you the department, but that's to protect officers. But how many officers own more than one car? It's maybe they're borrowing a car. It's whatever. It could be any scenario. We could sit here and guess all night or all day. But the point is legislation could go in and pass a law making it like a misdemeanor to be filming license plates of police employees, law enforcement employees working at a police department, and they may come up with that because of these police auditors. I haven't heard any buzzwords about it yet, but it could happen because it's the security aspect of the law enforcement employees, that's or firefighters or first responders, and stuff like that. So and that's a probability. But going to the police department and filming just to see if you can piss some cop off so they'll violate your rights so you can sue and make money. I mean, that's really what they're there for. That's why they're there. They're hoping that some idiot will violate their rights so they can sue. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I really think that there's better things you could be doing. I've seen officers come up to auditors or just people filming in public, and they don't like being filmed, and they'll use the excuse to stop you, saying, I need your information because that film that you just filmed of this whole incident is now considered evidence, and I need your information so I can serve you a warrant to confiscate your phone, or all that stuff. And you're like, well, officer, I didn't commit a crime. So if I haven't committed a crime and I'm not a suspect of a crime by state law, if this law applies to your state, then I don't have to give you my ID unless you suspect me of a crime. or you think I'm about to go commit a crime, but then you have to have articulatable suspicion and be able to articulate what that crime would be. So, it's crazy. And so I watch a lot of these videos, and a lot of times they're just annoy me. In reality, they really annoy me. But I understand the reasons for them, and I'm not necessarily attacking the auditors either, and I'm not attacking law enforcement. So I think law enforcement should be by now start to be a little more educated about these auditors and being filmed in public. If you can see it with your eyeballs, you should be able to film it. And if you can see it in your eyeballs, but you can't film it, and unless you have a clearance to be where you're at, you shouldn't be there in the first place. So you're probably trespassing. So it's whatever. But I've seen a lot of cops on these videos violating people's rights too, and I've seen a lot of auditors, kind of like instigating too. I've seen both sides of the spectrum, so I'm being as fair as I can. I've seen both ways on it. There's a guy in Florida, I can't remember the name of his channel, but he runs around Florida going fishing all over the state with his fishing pole, or he'll go crabbing, but he's always carrying a gun, and a lot of times he'll carry what looks like an AR-15 pistol. It's got like an 8-inch barrel or shorter. It has no buttstock on it, but he'll carry that around. He'll carry, it looks like a rifle, and he'll just carry it around fishing, because Florida state statute says when you're fishing, hunting, or camping, you have the right to defend yourself. And so he carries it around, and he attracts a lot of attention to himself, both positive and negative, even by law enforcement, both positive and negative, and by the public, both positive and negative. And his excuse that he says that he does it is he's trying to educate Floridians and law enforcement in Florida about the law and their right under that law. And is it overkill to be carrying an AR-15 or a 30-06 just to go fishing on a pier? I think it is. It's kind of redundant. Carry your pistol, if you're worried about it. But it's because he can. He carries because he can. And I understand that. And, the reality really boils down to why he carries it is because he gets paid for it by his videos. He makes his living doing it for his YouTube. I can't fault him. He's trying to make money. I don't blame him. But I'm just saying, he's not carrying it because he has a concern about his safety while fishing on a public pier. You know what I mean? And and I can understand the state statute in Florida about carrying a firearm when you're camping. What if a bear comes in your camp? What if a criminal element comes into the camp, which can happen too? What if there's a wild animal, and it's attacking, like a mountain lion or a cougar or whatever reason? All right, you should have the ability to defend yourself. Or if you're fishing, especially in Florida, and you're out there and you're fishing, and all of a sudden an alligator tries to attack you, so there are reasons why. Also out in nature in the middle of nowhere, people on the lam tend to congregate there. Criminal element like to go to nature. And so you could be out there fishing or camping, and someone that's on the lam running from the law, a fugitive, where do you think they're going to hide? They're going to go hide in the woods and then come out under the cover of darkness at night and see what they can rob, loot, and steal. Okay? So, and then they're going to go back in the woods. So if they see you there, well, you're a soft target for them. So being armed gives you the ability to defend yourself. And it just really depends on your political environment. You live in California. California hates guns. And they hate guns because, I believe their politics is tyrannical. You got Texas. If you have a Texas driver's license, you can carry a gun in your car. They do. You can go get a permit to carry CCW, but it's not necessarily required, because if you have a Texas driver's license and live in the state of Texas, you can carry a handgun in your car. I believe under certain requirements, like it can't be open. You can't have it laying on the seat for the general public to see. It's got to be hidden out of the way. But if you get stopped by law enforcement, put your hands up and say, hey, I'm carrying, I have a firearm, it's legal, it's registered to me, blah, blah, blah. Whatever their requirements are. Always stay law-abiding, follow the law. But if you're in California and you don't have a license to carry a firearm in the state of California, you're going to get in trouble. And probably catch a misdemeanor. And if you have any drugs in the car, it's an automatic felony. So, it's like, an armed society is a safer society. And if you look at crime in Texas versus crime in California, that's evident statistically. So, but we cannot allow our freedoms and our protected rights be trampled on. And I agree with that. I agree that we should not allow politicians to attack our churches and our freedom of religion and how we're going to practice our religion or our freedoms or how to conduct our churches is really not up for them. And they took great advantage of the pandemic and they closed down churches. But they left Walmart and Target open, but they closed down churches. And there's a lot more people going to Walmart and Target wearing nothing but a mask. A church could easily have worn a mask. They could have separated and did 6 feet distances. But in Walmart, there's no one running around inside of Walmart enforcing people to keep their 6 feet distance. Nah. Walmart and Target got a free pass. Yeah. Because they probably lobbying for some politicians and donating to their causes. And so they get a free pass. But the politicians attack the small mom and pop companies and shutter their doors. It's horrific, man. It's a nasty place that we are at in the political sphere of the United States in 2020, 2021, and now 2022. And every 4 months there's a new pandemic variant coming out. A new COVID variant. So, and it just seems limitless. They can just make up variants and all that, all they want, and drag this thing out for as long as they want, and cancel flights on Christmas and cancel flights on New Year's. And they didn't cancel flights the week before. They just waited until the holiday hit, and then they canceled your flights on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Yeah, how convenient, huh? If it was such a concern, why didn't you cancel flights 2 weeks before Christmas, a week before Christmas? No, you just waited until the day before Christmas, and then the day of Christmas, and the day after Christmas. Yeah, you think I mean, to me, it just seems planned, and I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but a lot of conspiracy theorists lately have been right, and rightly so. They should be running around saying, I told you so, it's crazy. It's like that that Jeffrey Epstein girlfriend got convicted, and I'm like, okay, well, she got convicted in a court of law. What about the people that these two individuals were hanging out with? Like Bill Clinton. Why isn't Bill Clinton being investigated? If Jeffrey Epstein was, he was murdered in a jail cell, or he died in a jail cell, I don't know the truth, but I know he's not alive. He was found not alive in a jail cell. That's the truth. How did he die? Somebody knows the truth. But, if he was suspected of all this pedophile crap, and his girlfriend got convicted because she's still alive, who was hanging out with them? Who was helping or participating with them? What about Prince Andrew? What about, it's like, it's disgusting. Oh, it's so disgusting. Child molestation and sex trafficking of minors, in my opinion, should be an automatic life sentence. Because you steal the soul of that child. And if you're convicted of those crimes, you should never be able to make parole. Because you murder the innocence of a child. And you should know better. All society should know better. It's unacceptable. It's like any crime attacking innocence should have the most severe punishment. I just don't see how investigators haven't brought up anybody attached to Epstein and his girlfriend on charges. But and I know this is off topic from the show discussion a little bit, but it's mind-boggling, and you got AOC going to a party or some function, not wearing a mask, and then before that, she wasn't wearing a mask, but when she was told, oh, we're about to start filming and turn the cameras on, everybody immediately put their mask on just for the cameras. And what does that signal to the general public? It makes us think this is a scamdemic, not a pandemic. Is this just about power and control? Because she doesn't seem to be too worried about COVID unless the cameras are rolling. I think she got caught up in the moment at that little party function that she was at, or that celebration function that she recently got caught on film not wearing a mask in public. And Nancy Pelosi's done the same thing. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, done the same thing. A few politicians and all Democrats have done the same thing. And these are the people attacking us, the citizens, the voters. These same people that are hypocritical are turning around and attacking us when we don't wear a mask. Do I want to get COVID? No, absolutely not. I don't want to get COVID. I try to do my best to not get COVID. I don't want to even get a head cold, let alone COVID. Who likes getting sick? Nobody. Maybe some people like it because they get attention, especially if they're attention starved, and that's the only time they get attention. Then they like to play sick all the time, and that's called malingering. I had a few soldiers in the Army that would malinger over my career, and, they usually get Article 15s, so for malingering, and they're using this malingering to get out of duty, is what it is. And, that's a new word for some of you, malingering. Look it up on Google. Malingering. But yeah, but being a good NCO, a good leader, a good sergeant, it's my job to spot that kind of behavior. That was back in my Army days. I am glad I am retired, and now I'm working on my other careers. So I'm having fun. I love doing this radio show with you guys. I ask that you subscribe, follow, and share it with your friends and family. Survival Talk Radio. Now a word from our sponsor.
Metro Security Services.
Based out of Pleasanton, California, servicing the Northern California Bay Area. For all your security needs, please call Metro Security Services out of Pleasanton, California.
Tell them Dan Shrigley sent you. Hi, you're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan Shrigley. Come and learn survival. Yeah, so, getting back to the First Amendment protected activity, it goes beyond just that one. It goes into censoring your speech, censoring your freedom of expression, and so if you're on one party side, it's okay. You can have all the free speech you want and expression you want. But if you're the opponent to that side, then they want to censor you. And they have the power to, because they're on the other side. You know what I mean? So big tech companies like Facebook and Twitter, Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, they have the power to delete you if you do things that violate their political ideology. So if you go against their political ideology, well, they're of the opinion, I'm not going to give you a soapbox on my platform to express yourself. We don't owe you that. We're a private company. And using our product is a privilege, not a right. And unfortunately, that is true. And it's unfortunate. It is a privilege to use their account, and they can decide who's going to use their account or not based off of their publicly published community standards and guidelines for conduct and usage. And then what sucks about it is when the opponent side, the conservative side, runs out and starts a new app for their version of their free speech that goes against the liberal side of free speech. Then they go to shut that app down and attack it. And they do so by attacking the app stores providing you that app, or the company that provides you that web service. I mean, they go and so they have some power and influence, or they'll cut business ties to get what they want. They play very dirty. So, for all you people on Facebook that keep getting put in Facebook jail, my suggestion to you is start a vanity website and blog. Start a podcast. All right? And the only thing you have to be careful of as far as what you're labeling in your free speech is the title. So if you do a blog, just be careful what you label the title as. Because it happened to me last week. I had, my radio show episodes, they all automatically get uploaded onto YouTube. And once in a while, YouTube will block it. For either, if I was playing some music on the episode and it's copyright protected, they'll block it. And then they'll also block it based off of the title of the episode. And why I got blocked is because I said something about Democrat Party is the new socialist party, and they blocked it and deleted that video off of YouTube for misleading, saying it's misleading, but it's not misleading. It's very true. There's progressive leftists that are Democrats that are pro-socialism. So it's not misleading. But because the title got that video deleted, from YouTube. And there's nothing I could do about it. Then I got warned because it was my first offense. So, it's whatever. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to lose sleep about it. But I just have to play tactfully. Play by the rules, but be very tactful. I'm still going to do what I want to do, but I'm going to be cautious about how I word it. So just looking at it, it might not seem attractive to them. Like right now, a bunch of auditors, fact checkers, or whatever, are going to see this video, this radio episode turned into a video for an Audible file on YouTube, right? And they're going to see First Amendment audit. They're not going to be worried about that because it didn't say anything like political. But they don't know that what I'm talking about, because they're not going to listen to every word of my episode. They listen to the first few minutes of it, if they even listen to it at all. And they probably don't. And they might have an algorithm that kind of tries to look for keywords. But I really doubt that they'll pick up on it. So, you just have to be careful. But I would really recommend doing a blog. Start a vanity website, do a blog, or start up, there's blog providers. But a vanity website would benefit you anyway, especially if you are moving some kind of product or service, or you're actor, model, entertainer, comedian, knife maker, whatever it is that you do. Maybe you're a hobbyist of something. But if you have a blog and you could share that blog article and still talk about everything you want to, but you're sharing a link over to your Facebook page, right? And that's not going to flag the algorithm, that link, unless your website gets flagged. But it would take a while for them to, look at your website like that and decide to block anything coming from it. Watch out for the hashtags you use, because some hashtags, they've banned certain hashtags. You can't use certain hashtags. I'm surprised they haven't banned any hashtag that says like Trump 2024, Trump 2016, MAGA. I'm surprised Facebook hasn't banned those hashtags. And I think they won't ban them because they use those hashtags to snoop around as to who they want to block, so they can get you off their platform. So be careful what you use on hashtags, because it could be used against you. Be tactful. Be smart. Use a hashtag that still serves the same purpose, but it's not going to come up on their analytics. You know what I mean? Their algorithm. That's about it, guys. I hope you enjoy the radio show. If you're ever being engaged by law enforcement, the best way is to cooperate and be respectful. I understand you can't always be that way with certain individuals in uniform, but you can always be the better person. All right, and remember, you don't know what's in another person's mind. So, a lot of law enforcement, their number one goal is to go home at night to their family, their children, their spouse, their mom, whoever it is they go home to. Maybe their dog. All right, that's the number one goal. Most of them, all right, if not almost all of them. But there's a few law enforcement officers that are corrupt, and unfortunately they ruin it for the majority. And you got to remember, some police departments and sheriff departments that are many different sizes on different budgets and stuff. So you'll have a small little sheriff department with or a police department with just a handful of officers, and they're recruiting from their local community, and so there's not a lot of extensive outside the community professional expertise available for that department for hire. I mean, it's like they're working with all they can get, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And so those little small communities, sometimes you'll see a little bit of corruption going in because there's that power thing in their individual's mind, and you got to remember who's doing the hiring. A small little department in Timbuktu in the boondocks, they're gonna hire on the buddy system, and tell you how to pass the background check. When I was an Army recruiter, we were always taught ethics, about bringing soldiers into the military. We had USAREC was the command that governed recruiting, and we had the AR 601210, Army Regulations 601210, and that was kind of the main regulation with all the regulations for recruiting and putting individuals to enlist in the military, in the Army. And and we are charged to be ethical and obliged by these regulations and not fluff it. So, for instance, like if someone came into the office and they pissed positive for drugs in their system, marijuana or whatever, and you can't go to the military enlistment processing center, otherwise known as MEPS, with marijuana in your system, and you urinate and come up hot, and think that you're going to swear in, and sign the enlistment contract and get your bonus and pick your dream job for the Army. I know the Marine Corps, I don't know what they do today, but I remember back in the day, the Marine Corps gave you the ASVAB, and they picked, based off of your ASVAB scores, what job you would do. I don't know if that's still the same, because I never served in the Marine Corps. But in the Army, based off of your ASVAB score, they would give you a list of jobs you're qualified to do, and you get to choose your job based off your ASVAB score and your education level, and that would be what was offered to you based off of those things. And but the recruiter is not supposed to give you strip it, and help you pass a drug test by helping you dilute it. They're not supposed to. That's unethical. They're not supposed to falsify any records for you. They're not supposed to tell you to not admit something like medical. Just don't say this on your SF-86 form. Don't say that, because he'll disqualify you, or we're going to have to get you a waiver now. Recruiters aren't supposed to be doing that in any branch of service. It's always supposed to be ethical, as per the regulation, so everybody's got rules. So there's some police departments, they probably have a hiring policy and guidelines and state law and city or county ordinances, municipal codes. So there's probably a lot of stuff that regulates who they can and cannot bring on board to the police department. But even no matter how strict something is, anything can slip through the system, especially if that anything doesn't have a record and they just never got caught. So that's the one thing you have to remember is, you know, yeah, they're a cop. You know, they went through the hiring process. They went through the psychological evaluation. They went through the polygraph test. They went through training. They were putting, you know, this and this and that. And, you know, a good narcissist can impersonate not being a narcissist for a long time. And then eventually their character is going to come out one day when something presses their button, you know. And that can be very dangerous, you know. And then, but by overall, though, by the mass majority, most law enforcement is common, decent, good folk. And they're not there to hurt you. They're there to protect you, you know. And as society continues down the roadway, and as we watch this calendar click by, and that clock dial keeps moving, you're going to see law enforcement getting better. You know, the ways of the old school, dirty, hairy type cops, they're gone. Most of them are gone and have been gone for a long time. You know, you might have some remnants of old school guys. They're going to be retiring soon. And, you know, pretty much now what you're going to get is, you know, a type of law enforcement officer that's highly educated, but very sensitive to the needs of the community, more so than ever before. And, you know, and even then, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be someone makes a mistake. Someone, you know, accidentally pulled a gun instead of a taser. You know, like that cop that just got convicted. You know, and I'm pretty certain that was an accident, but it still has to be held accountable. You know, she was a police officer, if I'm correct, for 26 years. She should know better, you know, and she made a mistake. And it's like that truck driver that killed 4 people, got 110 years in prison, more strict than some serial killers get, you know. And the public just the public came to the defense of that guy because there was just an outlandish sentence. It wasn't like he went out to do it on purpose. And unfortunately, 4 family members died. And of course, when your child's killed, you're going to want the person that killed your child to be held to the harshest standard, you know what I mean? But to 110 years, just ruined the person's life. So the governor, because of the petitions, millions of signatures, decided that sentence, this was way over the top, and commuted most of the sentence, and said that the guy killed 4 people. He needs to do at least 10 years in prison for that, for involuntary manslaughter. But it was, you know, that was in part negligence on his side, negligence on his company's side. The company that owned the truck, for maintenance issues. You know, I'm surprised the company hasn't been held criminally for that. You know, just the truck driver. All right, so, you know, I used to have a commercial truck driving license, and we're taught to inspect our vehicles thoroughly, every time, every day, and keep a record of that inspection, and that's to cover your tail, your company's tail, and protect the public at large. You know, so there would be some negligence on the side of the operator, but there could be some negligence on the side of the truck owner or the company that he worked for. And I haven't heard anything about any accountability for that. And there should probably be some accountability for that. You know, the guy was going to go to prison for 110 years. You would think that there would be a minimum of a civil suit going on against the company that owned the truck for failing to maintenance their vehicle. You know, so we'll see what happens with that. You know, but it's a very scary situation out there. So my words for the day: be prepared. If you're a survivalist, you should be a prepper too. And if you're a prepper, you should be a survivalist. Everybody should be a prepper. Everybody should be prepared. I'm a minimalist geosurvivalist. I wouldn't say expertise, but I would definitely say I operate on a full spectrum survival type aspect. So I know how to survive with nothing and how to use nature to provide me everything I need. But there is a difference between a survivalist and a prepper. A survivalist is someone that survives out in the wilderness or in the urban area, whatever the environment. It could be numerous types of environments. But your job is to stay alive for a short term, so you can be rescued or find self-rescue. So either be rescued by search and rescue or somebody, or rescue yourself by extracting yourself, egressing and finding civilization yourself. But that's a temporary thing. A prepper is for long-term survival, and they use an inventory to do so. Well, I would be a fool if I told you not to be a doomsday prepper or a prepper or whatever, pandemic prepper, a zombie apocalyptic prepper. Because when you have an inventory, you now can sustain longer without the fear of running out of something. And that could be tools, that can be whatever, but everybody should be both a survivalist and a prepper. My one thing about preppers I always warn them about: never store your inventory in one location, no matter how much firepower you have to defend it, because me being a combat veteran knows how easy it is to take over any location as long as I have a stronger, armed, well-equipped force. I'll always take your inventory. So if you're 3 people, it's you, your brother, and your wife. And I'll give you a couple extra. Your grandma, your grandpa, and your wife's father and brother. All right, so you may have like 10 people there, right? Or 8 people, 10 people, whatever. But I come in with 40 people, completely armed and highly trained, that have practiced tactics, know how to raid, know how to do entry. We're going to take your shit, and either we're going to put you in zip strips or you're going to be dead. You know what I mean? So don't get complacent and think that your security system is going to protect you. All right? Because, you have that hidden compartment in your house. All right? Well, what if they come in your house at night? You seen somebody was coming, so you go run to your panic room. All right? Or your hidden compartment, your hidden room. Now you think you're safe because no one can see. But these guys are wearing thermal optics. And they can see where your hand touched to open the hidden compartment. And there's a handprint there. And it's not a handprint in, fingerprint, but it's a handprint that a warm hand was just there. The first thing you're going to do is walk over and look at what you were touching. And if they can see that it's a switch or a button or something, they're going to manipulate it and open it up, and boom, they found you. All right, so, gotta be careful. I always say, if you're a prepper, geo-cache your inventory. If you have a bug-out plan with a bug-out bag and a bug-out route, and you have 2 or 3 alternate routes, then you should have cached along all your routes, inventory, so you can pick it up as you go or go back to it when you need it. But you should never have it in one place. You should have it in 2 or more places. But even if you have a bug out location, you might not want to put it in your bug out location, because if shit hits the fan or Totowaki, the end of the world happens, what do you think every other doomsday prepper and survivalist is going to do? They're all going to go to the woods. You're all going to be running into each other in the mountains, or in the forest, or in the desert. All right? So, I was kind of contemplating at one point in time trying to organize these people. Do you know the statistics of who makes up of survivalist doomsday preppers in the United States? It's a pretty incredible statistic. There's more preppers and survivalists in the United States than there are active duty military serving members. And that also includes reservists and National Guard. There's more. 1% protects the 99% of American. But there's almost 2% of Americans are survivalists and doomsday preppers, which also comprises of a lot of veterans. Army, Marine, Air Force, it don't matter, but veterans and law enforcement. We are a very tight-knit community. We are pro-gun. We are pro-Constitution. We are pro-First Amendment right, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. All right? We are oath keepers. And we are an extended family. I wish you a wonderful day or evening or morning. Take care.
Metro Security Services.
Based out of Pleasanton, California, servicing the Northern California Bay Area. For all your security needs, please call Metro Security Services out of Pleasanton, California.
Tell them Dan Shrigley sent you. Hi, you're listening to Survival Talk Radio with me, your host, Dan Shrigley. Come and learn survival.